Welcome to the Fantastic Comic Fan Podcast. I am pleased to welcome back to the podcast Ryan Gutierrez.
You did.
I have had him on the fifth time right now, and no other time I've ever gotten his name correct. So we are getting this lined up before recording. This is actually going to be running, I think, right around the 17th of May, which is Ryan's fourth anniversary appearing on the podcast.
Amazing.
I want you first off to tell the fans a little bit about yourself and what you've been doing since you haven't been on for 2 years.
I can't believe it's been 2 years.
Yeah, it's been about 2 years. So tell the fans a little bit about yourself, what's changed for you as a creator, and what's been going on in Ryan's life.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ryan Gutierrez, as Ron said. I'm a comic book artist and writer. I've done a lot of little indie books here and there, but recently, in the past 2 years, I have moved into my own creator-owned stuff as my primary focus of work. I created something you might have heard of called Black Marrow, which is a Western dark fantasy demon hunter superhero comic, which did really well on Kickstarter. I'm the sole owner of that IP, and I write it, I draw it. The only thing I don't do is the lettering, but I do the colors. I helped with the book design, everything. So that's doing well. And in the coming year, I'm looking to do another issue of that. I'm working on a King Arthur adaptation, and a lot of that's been afforded by the new popularity that I'm enjoying right now because Black Marrow did really well. And so yeah, no, finally, after years and years of toiling in obscurity in this industry, I'm starting to get a little bit of traction. So that's good. And
So
I come on here to talk smack with Ronald.
how, for like aspiring creators, how do you feel about your success? Did you ever think it was going to come about? Do you see new doors opening up for you?
Yeah, I would say for me, my entire career, I'm 38 now, and I've been doing this since I was in my 20s, working in this field full time. I think the advice I'd give is to really focus on building a brand for yourself. I think social media can be really helpful. I think a lot of people mistakenly look at Marvel and DC as the only options you have. But really, nowadays, it's never been easier to be a professional artist. It's never been easier to build that fan base using social media. And there's a million ways to monetize it and to get people to see you as someone who can give them something they want, which is art that they enjoy in any form it takes. So the advice I'd say is to use Twitter. Instagram is my big one, and that's the audience that bought my book really largely were people who knew me from Instagram and YouTube. Though those are two big places. I'm sure Ron can attest to that. And yeah, I would say focus on building your brand as your style, your personality, because they're not just buying your book, your comic, your art, they're also buying you. They're investing in you. They like you. So be likable, be nice, be charming, and be diligent.
Now, when I bring a guest on this show, I generally let them pick the topic because if the guest is excited about the topic, it should filter down to fans and get fans excited about the project. This time around, we're doing something different and exciting. Ryan wants to talk about the Absolute Universe. I'm really excited about it because I don't really get a chance to talk about too many things going on nowadays. Ryan, why do you think the Absolute Universe titles are selling so well today?
I think that DC has always, and comics in general, especially the big two, have always had this strategy of rejuvenating by rebooting, and it typically is successful in rejuvenating the fan base and getting more people interested. I think one of the reasons it's popular is because the Absolute Universe is taking this narrative approach that's giving younger readers a chance to get in on a ground level with the characters. If you're someone who missed Dark Knight Returns, Absolute Batman is very similar, and it's in a way that's specifically has certain cultural biases that resonate probably with a lot of younger readers. And even I'm not a younger reader. I'm 38 now, and I obviously am not Gen Z, but when I read it, I was like, I get it. This is entertaining. It is the appeal of something new and to see where it goes. I think they have some great art attached to each book. I think that's a big part of it.
Not everybody is into the Absolute Universe comic books. Why do you think that's so? And what would you suggest fans go and give it a try if they're not already trying it out?
If they're not enjoying it, I would say I get it. I have my own criticisms, which we'll get into. But I think if you're someone who is interested in seeing, I would say, I was hard to say it's a totally fresh approach, but I think the artwork alone for some of these series is worth giving it a shot. I think the art for Absolute Superman is really beautiful. And I think Nick Dragotta on Absolute Batman is just absolutely killing it. Yeah, I would say stick with it for the first story arc if you can. And just see where it goes. Give them a chance to impress you.
What do you think of DC tying it into its all-in initiative with the regular universes versus Marvel keeping their right now Ultimate Universe separate?
I think probably the reason they did it is to do the opposite of what Marvel's doing. They don't want to be, nobody wants to adopt a strategy that is fully adapted by your competitor. You want to give it some signature that is its own. The Ultimate Universe has been around for a long time, and the Absolute Universe has been around for a little bit of a blink. So the idea that they're going all in, I think possibly it's a display of bravado. Hey, look at how sure we are about this.
I want to talk about the three core titles that have come out. We're going to go one by one. I'll
Sure.
give you what I briefly think about each, the first one, and then you tell me your thoughts. Absolute Superman. Me, I've been into Superman for decades, even before the Crisis events. I loved Superman as a kid. So, Ryan, I think you have some mixed negative reviews on Absolute Superman. Is that true?
Yeah, I agree with you that a Teen Kal coming to Earth is actually a nice fresh take that gives them some different opportunities. And it also explains the somewhat angstier approach of the character. All of that I'm actually generally okay with. The issue that I have is there's this tendency that they have in comics and in movies sometimes to show too much of Krypton instead of letting it be mysterious. And the fact that like when they start with Krypton and it's like Krypton is basically just Earth with fancier, weirder clothing. Like the power structures, the social dynamics, it doesn't feel very alien. And I actually feel like maybe that's a mistake, especially if you're going to do a fish out of water story with showing this alien adapting to Earth. You have an immense opportunity to make Krypton feel really different instead of making it a series of analogies and metaphors for Earth culture. But I don't know, maybe they'll surprise me down the road and there'll be a reason for it. Generally, I think Jason Aaron, the writer, he's a little hit or miss for me. Sometimes I love what he's doing and sometimes it makes me throw my hands up. But generally, yeah, I think that's my only real criticism of it. Everything else they're doing, I actually think is an interesting idea. And again, I do think that's as something that they suspect will appeal to younger readers, which I guess they always have felt a little insecure about Superman in that way. I think that if you want to bring in younger readers, having a teen Kal-El, I think is a good idea. And I think if you can tap into the desire to make the world a better place with the uncertainty of how one does that, I think a teen Superman is a great way to approach that.
Batman. To me, it seems a little slow and taking a little long to flesh things out and introduce where it's going. But again, it's dark and gritty. I'm telling you, the regular Batman stuff being so dark and gritty all the time. And it's dreary. And I read comic books as an escape, not to be reminded of life. So that's my big criticism. I'm tired of reading some of the ultimate stuff just comes to be so downing and depressing and dreary. Let's have some upbeat stories. And that's my main criticism. I like it, but it seems to be moving slow. I would like a little more lightness. I understand it's a dark side created universe, but it just seems a little too dark for me. Ryan, what's your take?
It's funny because we're going to disagree on Absolute Batman. I think it's probably their best book in the Absolute verse right now because what is slow moving, I see as them prioritizing differently. You said the plot points are moving slowly. I actually think the mistake, in my opinion, would be to assume that those plot points are actually the focus when the real focus is the power fantasy of Absolute Batman and the high tempo of action of every issue just feels the theme of the comic when Pennyworth describes Batman as always advancing forward, constantly advancing, like he's always pushing forward and fighting. That's a great approach to the character. I think it's very much in the spirit of Frank Miller, but with Scott Snyder's got a little more of a diplomatic, moral approach than Frank Miller did. He had that kind of extremist edge to Batman. I agree that some of the dark, gritty elements, sometimes I get a little tired of it, mostly because what they seem to be doing in every comic is they really love this Christopher Nolan bend on Batman's code of like that he's very strictly never ever a murderer, but then they make the bad guys more and more horrific to the point where I'm having a harder and harder time empathizing with the hero who doesn't just blow these guys up because they're so evil. They describe the Black Mask gang as with the party animals as a that they burned down like a nursery at some point. I can't think of anything more evil than that. But beyond that, I think it's a great book in a lot of ways.
It's every other Superman story. He's beaten down to the point of death. Gotham's on flames. There's no bright spots in Batman. It's just
Yeah.
become dark and dreary. Absolute Wonder Woman. It's a fresh take,
Yeah.
staying fresh to Wonder Woman. Another one that seems weak. I think it's the least connected to the mythos of the core character. And I wish you would add some of the more twist of the Wonder Woman mythos. I mean, you basically have Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor, and that's it.
I do like her design. I think the big ass sword is pretty cool. I think it's going to be very appealing to that video game crowd that grew up on Final Fantasy VII. You guys know who you are. But I think that there's this mistake that they've made generally. This is my general consensus on the Absolute Universe. My general thought is that the mistake that they've made is that the word absolute, I thought, meant that they were going to be going for the purest version of each character, but instead they're just pushing each character in generally the same direction, darker and grittier, which is a mistake they've made multiple times at DC. It's like the Absolute Superman doesn't really pull me in very much because I don't want to see a dark, gritty Superman. I actually really enjoy the lighter, fun humor and optimism of the character, and it's very hard to find nowadays. For Batman, I'm okay with it being that way. What I think a mistake they make is that they make it so dark and gritty that you can't even relate to the idea of Gotham as being a city worth saving. You have to balance it out by showing that it's a place where people live and that their lives matter and that there are good people there. Otherwise, it's just this guy, Batman is essentially fighting demons in hell. It's like, what are you going to do? You're not going to purge hell of demons. It's just always going to be that way. So you got to balance those things out. I think maybe they're working on it. Scott Snyder's a good writer. I do feel like they don't really know what to do with her because it feels like every time they alter her origin, it awakens this huge cultural discourse around the character because she's such an icon for female heroes. So I think they're really focusing on marketing her based on this new design that over the decades have gone further and further into the warrior woman aesthetic of the sword and the shield. And I actually think that's a good play for her. I think she looks cool. But with that one, I'm waiting to see where it goes because I don't really have a strong opinion yet.
What do you think of the new entries in the Absolute Universe? Flash, Green Lantern, and Martian Manhunter.
Martian Manhunter has pulled me in the most of all of them. It's the weirdest one. I think it's appropriately weird. I think the art style reminds me of Trad Moore in the early 2000s. It's got an interesting look to it. I'm curious where that goes. The less popular a character is, the more opportunities you have to mold them into something interesting.
What do you think about briefly Green Lantern?
The Flash, the artwork especially, looks really beautiful. And Green Lantern is a character that I've never really read on his own. And I'm curious if this is going to be the first Green Lantern book to really pull me in and make me love the character.
How do you think DC might drop the ball in the Absolute Universe line?
I think they're going to keep it separate until they know exactly how popular it is and whether or not it's popular enough to overtake the regular titles or fuse with them in a way that's totally cohesive and appropriate. I think they're basically wading the water to try to see what people want. How long they do it, I don't know. What was the first question? It was what mistakes could they make? I think the biggest mistake they could make is making the continuity a mess because that's one of the first things that turn people off superhero comics is when you start having one writer try to change the major story points of a different writer so that they could do something. And then you end up with a continuity that just feels like a game of Twister.
One last question about the Absolute Universe. Are you looking forward to an Absolute Justice League?
Especially if I'd be interested to see which writer they get for that. But if the artwork is as consistent as it's been on those books, I think it'd be beautiful to look at the very least. The absolute version of any of the Justice League villains would be interesting to see how they'd handle it narratively and visually.
Ryan, I want to thank you for joining for this edition of the podcast. We'll have you on again, but we won't wait so long next time.
Thank you so much. You guys are the best.